The message hit my phone at 11:47 on a Thursday night, which honestly should have tipped me off right away. Nothing good ever seems to come out of family group chats once it's past 11. Big announcement, my brother Ethan wrote, followed by 3 champagne emojis like that explained everything. Then came the bomb. Jennifer and I are getting married. June 15th. Details to follow. The chat exploded almost instantly. Aunts and uncles chimed in with congratulations. Cousins spammed heart emojis. My mom, as expected, went over the top. So happy for you both. I typed back. Congratulations, Ethan. Really happy for you. 3 dots showed up. Vanished. Then popped back again. A second later, my phone buzzed with a private message from Ethan. We need to talk about the wedding. Call me tomorrow. I stared at the screen while a heavy, uncomfortable feeling settled into my gut. There was no thanks, sis. No can't wait to have you there. Just we need to talk. I barely slept that night. Ethan called right at 8 a.m. on the dot, which told me he'd been lying awake thinking about this. My brother has never been a morning person. Hey, I answered. Congrats again. So here's the thing. He cut in before I could say anything else. Jennifer and I have been talking, and we're going for a very specific look for the wedding. Super curated. Very intentional. I stayed quiet and let him keep going. We're keeping it small. Really intimate. Just people who fit the vibe we're trying to create. Okay, I said carefully. And the thing is... He paused and let out a long breath. Jennifer's worried about the photos. We're dropping 15 grand on the photographer. Her dress is custom Vera Wang. The venue's this unreal estate out in the Hamptons. Everything needs to be perfect. Ethan, I said, what are you actually trying to tell me? You're not invited. The words tumbled out fast. To the wedding. We think it's better if you sit this one out. The silence between us stretched on. I should have felt crushed or furious. Instead, I felt oddly detached, like I was watching a slow-motion crash and couldn't look away. Why? Yes. Jennifer thinks you'd mess up the photos, he said. You know how you dress, Emma. Target, Old Navy, that kind of thing. We can't have that in the pictures. It doesn't match the aesthetic. The aesthetic, I repeated, completely flat. This really matters to us, he said. To Jennifer especially. And honestly, it would just be awkward. You don't really fit our crowd. Her friends are all fashion people. Influencers. People with real style. I see. Don't make this into a big thing, he added quickly. It's not personal. You're just... not really wedding material. No offense. Every word stung, but I kept my voice steady. Does Mom know? I'm telling everyone today. They'll get it. It's my day, and I get to choose who's there. You're right, I said. It is your day. So you're okay with this? I didn't say that, I replied. I said it's your decision. Great, he said, clearly relieved. I knew you'd understand. Then we hung up. I sat alone in my apartment, my penthouse overlooking Central Park, though Ethan had no idea, and stared out at the skyline without really seeing it. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my mom. Honey, Ethan explained the wedding situation. I know you're disappointed, but it's his special day. Let's not make this harder than it needs to be. I typed back one word, okay. I probably owe you some context for how we ended up here. Ethan, always the favorite, had been the golden child since day one. He was good-looking, charming, and had that effortless likability that pulled people in. He bounced around marketing jobs, never quite settling, but somehow always landing on his feet thanks to personality alone. He was 32, made around 95 grand a year, and lived in a decent Brooklyn apartment my parents helped pay for. Jennifer, his fiancée, was an influencer with 47,000 Instagram followers and a part-time gig at a PR firm. Together, they posted luxury lifestyle content while barely being able to afford the life they were selling. Then there was me, the quiet sister, the invisible one. I never cared much about appearances. I went to Columbia for computer science, worked brutal hours through my 20s, and by 29 had co-founded a cybersecurity company. That company was recently acquired for $340 million. After taxes, my personal share came out to $127 million. My family had no idea. They knew I worked in tech. Something with computers. They assumed I made maybe $80,000 a year and lived in a small Manhattan apartment. I never corrected them. Why? Because I learned early that love in my family came with conditions. When they thought you had nothing, they pitied you. When they knew you had something, they wanted a piece of it. So I stayed quiet. I dressed plainly when I saw them, which wasn't often. I drove a sensible Honda when I visited. My real cars stayed hidden in a private garage. I let Ethan be the successful, stylish one while I played the role of the struggling tech nerd. And now he was cutting me out of his wedding because I'd ruined the photos. The irony was almost beautiful. Over the next 6 weeks, I watched the wedding prep play out on Instagram. Jennifer posted non-stop. Dress fittings, venue walkthroughs, floral mock-ups, shout-outs to her amazing wedding planner who was making their dream a reality. Every post dripped with borrowed luxury. It was the kind of aesthetic you build when you're desperate to look rich without actually being rich. My mom called twice to check in. "You're really not upset about the wedding thing?" "I'm not," I told her, and it was the truth. I wasn't upset. I was something else entirely. Something colder. More deliberate. "Ethan's just trying to make Jennifer happy," my mom said. "You know how much this matters to her. Her family's very particular." "I understand," I said. "You're handling this so maturely," she added. "I'm proud of you." She'd never said she was proud when I actually accomplished something meaningful, but she was proud that I accepted being excluded without complaint. That worked for me. My assistant, Claire, didn't see it the same way. When I told her what happened, she stared at me from across my desk, torn between disbelief and anger. "Your brother uninvited you because you'd ruin the photos?" "Yes. And you're just letting it happen." "It's his wedding," I said. "His call." She glanced down at my outfit. "Emma, you're wearing a custom Dior suit right now. You own a penthouse in Manhattan. Your net worth is—" She lowered her voice even though we were alone. "You're not exactly the fashion disaster he's describing." "They don't know that." Claire looked at me. "Why don't they know that?" I thought about it for a moment before answering. Because I wanted to see who they were when they believed I had nothing they needed from me. And now I have my answer. She shook her head slowly. "So what are you going to do?" "Nothing," I said. Then I repeated it. "Nothing. It's his wedding day. I'm not going to sabotage it." She gave me a look that said she didn't fully buy that explanation. "However," I added, "June 15th also happens to be the night of the Tech Innovation Gala. The one that honors this year's breakthrough companies and their founders." Her eyebrows lifted. "Our cybersecurity acquisition is being recognized," I continued. "I'm fairly sure we're receiving an award. You're going there instead." "I'm being presented the award by the mayor," I said. "There will be several Fortune 500 CEOs in attendance. Full press coverage. Professional photographers. The whole production." I smiled to myself. "And it's black tie, so I'll need to dress accordingly." Claire's expression shifted from disbelief to something closer to awe. "You know," she said, "you're kind of terrifying sometimes." I prefer the word strategic. June 15th arrived with flawless weather. Sunny, 75 degrees, no humidity at all. The kind of day that makes wedding photographers giddy. I spent the morning at the spa, then met my stylist at 2 in the afternoon. We'd been planning the look for weeks. The gown was custom Elie Saab. Midnight blue silk, hand-embroidered with silver detailing that shimmered under the light like stars. The price tag was $45,000. The jewelry came next. Estate pieces I'd purchased at auction. A diamond necklace and matching earrings that once belonged to a French aristocrat. Conservatively valued at $280,000. My hair was swept into an elegant updo. My makeup was flawless but restrained. I looked like old money, which felt fitting considering I was technically new money who had acquired quite a bit of old money's former possessions. Claire let out a low whistle when she saw me. Ethan is going to lose his mind. He won't, I said calmly. He's in the Hamptons at his wedding. I'm attending a gala in Midtown. She smiled. Two completely different worlds. Exactly. No overlap whatsoever. The Tech Innovation Gala was held at the Plaza Hotel and hosted around 300 guests. Founders, CEOs, investors, politicians, and members of the press. I arrived with my business partner, David, who looked sharp in a custom Tom Ford tuxedo. Ready to be celebrated? He asked as we stepped onto the red carpet. Always. Photographers called my name. I stopped, posed, smiled, answered questions about the acquisition and the future of our company. Tech journalists lined up for interviews. A reporter from Forbes asked about my background, my journey, and what advice I'd give young women entering tech. I answered thoughtfully, fully aware that every word would be quoted, photographed, and circulated online. The mayor gave a speech praising innovation and entrepreneurship. Then our company was announced. David and I walked on stage together and accepted the award while 200 people applauded. More photos, more press, more validation for everything I'd built. At dinner, I was seated between a Fortune 500 CEO and a venture capitalist who managed a $2 billion fund. We talked market trends, investment strategies, and the future of cybersecurity. It was the kind of conversation where everyone at the table spoke the same language of success. Around 8 p.m., someone posted a photo to Instagram. It was me in my Ellie Saab gown, standing between the mayor and the Fortune 500 CEO, holding my award and laughing at something the mayor had just said. I looked polished, confident, completely at home. The caption read, "Tech pioneer Emma Chin honored at tonight's Innovation Gala. From startup to $340 million acquisition. A masterclass in building success." By morning the photo would be everywhere. But at the time I was simply enjoying the night, surrounded by people who understood what I'd accomplished and why it mattered. Meanwhile, as I later learned, Ethan's wedding was unfolding in the Hamptons. The ceremony was beautiful. Jennifer wore her custom Vera Wang gown. Ethan stood beside her in a tailored suit. They exchanged vows in front of 120 carefully selected guests at a waterfront estate. The theme was romantic elegance, white, cream, gold accents, and enough flowers to keep a florist in business for a year. The photos were exactly what Jennifer wanted. Immaculate, polished, perfectly Instagram ready. While I was accepting my award at the plaza, Ethan was giving a heartfelt speech at the reception about true love and building a perfect life together. During dinner, his best man Kyle, a social media manager, was scrolling through Instagram. Old habits die hard. That's when he saw the photo. Me, in a gown worth more than Ethan's entire wedding budget, standing next to the mayor and a CEO whose net worth topped $4 billion, at an event that required serious credentials just to attend. "Dude," Kyle said, interrupting Ethan mid-conversation with a groomsman. "Isn't that your sister?" He held out his phone. According to Kyle, who later told mutual friends, Ethan's face cycled through several expressions in rapid succession. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, and then a very specific shade of pale that suggested his entire worldview was collapsing. That can't be," Ethan said, grabbing the phone and zooming in as if it might magically turn into someone else. "But it was me." Shame face. Smile. Just elevated in every possible way. "Emma Chin, tech entrepreneur," Kyle read aloud. $340 million acquisition. "Dude, what the hell? Your sister is that Emma Chin. The one who sold the cybersecurity company." The table went silent. Nearby guests started pulling out their phones, searching for the photo themselves. Jennifer appeared beside Ethan, her expression already tight from the strain of maintaining a flawless wedding day. "What's wrong?" Ethan couldn't speak. He just handed her the phone. She stared at the screen. Even her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the color draining from her face. "This is your sister," she said slowly. "The one who shops at Target. The one who would ruin our photos." "I didn't know," Ethan whispered. His voice barely carried. Kyle, doing what social media managers do best, had already dug deeper. There's a Forbes article, he said. Emma Chin, Columbia grad, co-founded the company 7 years ago. He paused. Holy hell, Ethan. Your sister is worth over $100 million. A ripple moved through the reception like wildfire. Guests murmured. Phones came out. Screens lit up. And suddenly, the aesthetic didn't matter anymore. Guests started digging. Phones came out. Articles were pulled up. Photos, interviews, profiles. It turned out the tech world and the social world overlapped a lot more than Ethan had ever realized. A few of Jennifer's influencer friends recognized my name immediately. You uninvited Emma Chin from your wedding, one of them said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Emma Chin, who was literally just named one of Forbes' most powerful women in tech. Jennifer looked like she might throw up. This was not the aesthetic she had spent months carefully curating. At the family table, my mother stared at her phone in stunned silence. My father kept looking from the screen to Ethan, his face turning redder by the second. You told us she had a basic tech job, Dad said quietly. His voice edged with something dangerous. You said she couldn't afford nice clothes. You said she'd ruin the photos. I didn't know, Ethan said, his voice cracking. How could you not know? My mother demanded. She's your sister. She never told us, Ethan said weakly. She let us think she was struggling. Mom kept scrolling. Oh no. This is bad. She looked up. People are already connecting everything. Someone just posted asking why you aren't in any of her family photos. Someone else says they heard you uninvited your own sister because she wasn't fashionable enough. Jennifer made a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. Her perfect wedding was unraveling online in real time. We need to fix this, she said. Call her. Apologize. Do something. Ethan pulled out his phone, his hands shaking, and dialed my number. I was still at dinner, my phone on silent, completely unaware of the meltdown happening 90 miles away. I didn't see his call, or the 12 texts that followed, or my mother's increasingly frantic messages. I was too busy talking venture capital with a billionaire who found my perspective on cybersecurity refreshingly practical. I finally checked my phone around 11, as the gala was winding down. 43 missed calls. 72 unread texts. My voicemail box was full. Claire, I said, handing her my phone. I think something happened. She took one look and burst out laughing. Oh, something definitely happened. I opened the family group chat. It was absolute chaos. Mom, Emma, call me right now. Dad, we need to talk immediately. Ethan, why didn't you tell us? Ethan, Emma, please. Ethan, everyone here knows who you are. Ethan, this is so humiliating. Ethan, Jennifer is crying. Ethan, how could you do this to me? And then, about 20 messages later. Ethan, I'm sorry. Ethan, I'm so sorry. Ethan, please call me back. I stared at the screen without much emotion. Maybe there was a faint echo of satisfaction somewhere, but mostly I just felt tired. Are you going to call him? Claire asked. Not tonight, I said. It's his wedding night. I wouldn't want to ruin it. She laughed again. You're absolutely ruthless. I'm not doing anything, I said evenly. I attended an event where I was honored for my professional work. If that somehow impacts his wedding, that's not really on me. The internet disagrees, she said. You're trending on Twitter. #EmmaChinWedding and #wedding photos are both blowing up. I looked at her. What? He showed me her phone. Someone had matched my gala photos with Ethan's wedding date. Screenshots of Jennifer's flawless wedding posts were being compared side by side with photos of me at the gala. People were putting the story together fast. The narrative was writing itself. Successful woman excluded from family wedding for not being fashionable enough. Shows up the same night at a prestigious black tie gala looking like royalty while her brother's wedding turns into a social media disaster. I didn't do this, I said quietly. No, Claire agreed. But you didn't stop it either. Should I have stayed home? Yes. Skipped an award ceremony to make my brother feel better? Of course not. But I knew this might happen, I admitted. Maybe not every detail, but I'd known that attending a high-profile event on his wedding day, dressed like that, surrounded by those people, would eventually reach him. I just underestimated how fast social media would connect the dots. So what are you going to do? Claire asked. I looked at the flood of messages. Ethan's apologies arriving far too late. Right now I'm going home. Tomorrow, I'll decide whether he's earned a response. I didn't call him back that night. Or the next day. I needed time to think, to process, to figure out what I actually wanted out of all this. My parents showed up at my apartment Sunday afternoon. I buzzed them in and watched their faces change as the private elevator opened directly into my penthouse. My mother gasped. Emma, what is this place? My home, I said. Coffee. Tea. They wandered through the space like museum visitors, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows, the original art, the designer furniture, the Central Park view that probably added several $1 million to the property value. How long have you lived here? My father asked. 3 years. I bought it after our Series B funding round. You bought it? My mother sat down heavily in my Barcelona chair. You bought this? Yes, the entire floor. Plus the one above it. I used that level as my home office. My father stared at me like he was seeing a stranger. Emma, what exactly do you do? What did you build? So I told them everything. How David and I founded the company. How we built our client base. The technical problems we solved. The business strategy. The years of 18-hour days and constant pressure. How we cracked a cybersecurity issue that major corporations were desperate to fix. $340 million, my mother whispered. Yes, I said. The company sold for that. My personal share after taxes was about $127 million. Silence filled the apartment. Why didn't you tell us? My father finally asked. Why let us believe you were struggling? I wasn't struggling, I said. You assumed I was. Those are two different things. That's not really an answer, he said. I met his eyes. When did any of you ever ask about my work? Really ask? When did you visit my office, meet my team, or try to understand what I was building? You said you worked in tech, my mother protested. You said you did computer security. And you never asked a single follow-up question, I said. You never wanted details. You already had Ethan, the successful one, the charismatic one, the one you bragged about to your friends. To them, I'd always just been the nerdy daughter who did something dull with computers. The truth sat there between us, heavy and unavoidable. Ethan is devastated, my mom said quietly. The wedding turned into... Well, it turned into being about you instead of him and Jennifer. People were on their phones all night looking you up. Jennifer's been crying. She says her perfect day was ruined. I was 90 miles away, I said evenly. At my own event. Accepting an award for my work. I didn't show up at the wedding. I didn't hijack anything. I didn't post those photos out of spite. I was just living my life. Yes, my father said. But it happened on his wedding day. On a day that also happened to be his wedding day, I replied. Should I have turned down the award? Skipped the ceremony. Pretended I wasn't successful so he could feel special. You could have told him, my mother said. At any point in the last 7 years. So he could ask me for money. Yes. So he could brag to his friends about his rich sister. So you could finally boast about having a successful daughter to match your successful son. That's not fair, she said. Isn't it? I met her gaze. When was the last time you asked how I was doing without it turning into a request, or a comparison to Ethan's latest achievement? She opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no answer. He uninvited me from his wedding, I said softly. Because I'd ruined the photos. Because I wasn't fashionable enough for his aesthetic. Because I didn't fit his crowd. Those were his words. He didn't know, my mom said. No, I said. He assumed. He assumed based on how I dressed when I visited. Car I drove. the apartment he imagined I lived in. And from those assumptions, he decided I wasn't worthy of being in his wedding pictures. What does that tell you about who he is? Yes. About how he values people. My father looked away. There was nothing he could say to defend it. Your brother wants to apologize, my mom said. In person. Can he come see you? Thought about that. About whether I wanted to hear Ethan's apology. Whether it would mean anything. Whether this relationship was even salvageable. Yes, I said finally. He can come tomorrow evening. 7 o'clock. They left shortly after, still stunned, still trying to reconcile the daughter they thought they knew with the reality in front of them. Ethan arrived exactly at 7 the next night. He came alone. When the elevator doors opened, he froze, staring at my apartment the same way our parents had. Hey, he said quietly. Hey. We sat in my living room with the city lights glittering below us. The silence carried everything neither of us knew how to say. I'm sorry, he began. I'm so sorry. I was cruel. Cello. I excluded you from one of the most important days of my life because I'm a judgmental idiot who only sees the surface. Waited. I've spent the last 2 days reading everything, he continued. About you. Your company. The Forbes pieces. The tech blogs. What you built is incredible, Emma. It actually matters. And I didn't even know because I never bothered to ask. No, I said quietly. You didn't. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to see who you were when you believed I had nothing. I held his gaze. And you showed me. He flinched. That's harsh. Is it? Yes. You uninvited me from your wedding. You said I'd ruin your photos. That I wasn't wedding material. Do you understand what that feels like? I do, he said quickly. I do. And I'm sorry. But you let me think. Don't, I interrupted. Don't make this about what I let you think. I dressed simply because I value comfort over image. I drove a Honda because it's practical. I didn't talk about my work because I'm private. None of that was deception. You saw plain clothes and a sensible car and decided that meant failure. You're right, he said. You're completely right. The internet thinks I planned all of this, I said. That I timed the gala to humiliate you. That I wanted your wedding to look bad. Did you? I thought about lying. About how easy it would be to say no. But I was done hiding. I knew there was a chance, I admitted. I knew going to a high-profile event on your wedding day might eventually reach you. I knew how I'd look in photos compared to how you thought I looked. Did I plan for it to go viral? Well, did I hope you'd see those photos and understand what you'd done? Pause. Maybe a little. He absorbed that. So you wanted to hurt me. I wanted you to understand consequences, I said. There's a difference. You judged me on appearances. I showed you that your judgment was wrong. That isn't revenge. That's reality. Jennifer wants to meet you, he said suddenly. She wants to apologize. She's horrified by what she said, by how she acted. He hesitated. Her followers are turning on her. Brand deals are at risk. People are calling her fake. And is she sorry for what she did, I asked. Or sorry for what it cost her? He didn't answer right away. That told me everything. Here's what I want from you, I said. Not an apology driven by panic or public pressure. Not a relationship built on my net worth. I want you to actually think about how you treat people, especially the ones who can't help you, who don't elevate your status, who don't fit your aesthetic. I will, he said. I promise. Do you actually want a relationship with me, Ethan? Yes. A real one. Not one where you show me off or ask for money or connections. Yes, he said after a moment. Honestly, yes. Miss you. I miss having a sister. I didn't realize how badly I'd messed that up until I saw those photos and understood who you'd become without me. I've always been this person, I said gently. I was this person at 22 when I started the company. I was this person working 100-hour weeks, sleeping in my office. I was this person when you dismissed me as boring and unsuccessful. My net worth changed. I didn't. I see that now, he said. Do you? Yes. Or do you just see the money and the access and the connections I could offer? I don't know, he admitted. And I respected him for that. I want to say I see you, Emma. But I'm not sure I even know who that is anymore. I'm not sure I ever did. We sat quietly for a long moment. Your wedding looked beautiful, I said at last. I saw the photos. Jennifer's dress was stunning. The venue was incredible. You looked happy, he said. Until everyone started looking at photos of you instead of me. There was no anger left in his voice. Just acceptance. That was never my intention, I said. But you knew it might happen. Yes, I said. So what now, he asked. Do I get a chance to fix this? To actually be your brother instead of the guy who cut you out of his wedding? I took my time answering. I thought about whether people truly change, whether apologies hold weight, whether relationships worn down by years of quiet dismissal can really turn into something honest. You get one chance, I said. Just one. He nodded. But this isn't about big gestures or public apologies, I continued. It's about the everyday stuff. How you treat people when there's nothing in it for you. Whether you call me because you care about my life, not because you want something from it. I can do that, he said quickly. We'll see, I replied. He stood to leave, then paused by the elevator. For what it's worth, he added. You looked incredible in those gala photos. Better than anyone at my wedding. Including me. Smiled. I know. The weeks after that were strange. My life had always been quiet, intentional, carefully contained. Suddenly it wasn't. I was public in a way I'd never planned for. Interview requests poured in. Invitations to speak at tech conferences. Offers to join boards. People wanted to hear about my journey, my strategy, my advice for entrepreneurs trying to build something real. Ethan made an effort. I'll give him that. He called once a week. He asked real questions. He listened. He stopped assuming he knew my life based on the surface. Jennifer sent a handwritten apology. 4 pages long. Thoughtful, surprisingly self-aware. She owned her materialism, her shallow thinking, her role in what happened. My parents had a harder time. They wanted to be proud of me, but that pride was tangled with regret over everything they'd missed. My dad kept asking why I hadn't let him invest in the company. My mom started introducing me as my daughter, the tech entrepreneur, finding subtle ways to claim proximity to my success. I set boundaries, clear ones, about what I would accept, about how I wanted to be treated, about what kind of relationship I was willing to have with them. Some respected those boundaries. Some didn't. 6 months after the wedding, Ethan and Jennifer had their first child, a daughter named Sophia. They asked me to be her godmother. Said yes. Not because I'd forgotten what happened. Not because everything was magically forgiven. But because I believe in second chances. In growth. In the possibility that people can become better than who they were. And because Sophia deserved an aunt who would teach her that worth isn't measured in designer labels or Instagram aesthetics. That real success is built through work, integrity, and treating people with dignity, no matter how impressive or unimpressive they appear on the surface. The wedding photos eventually showed up in several online articles about wealth, class, and the assumptions we make about success. Jennifer's carefully curated aesthetic was compared to my gala photos, dissected as a case study in performative versus actual luxury. None of us had planned that, but the internet loves a morality tale. Ethan framed one of the gala photos, the one with me, the mayor, and the Fortune 500 CEO, and hung it in his home office. A reminder, he said, to never make assumptions, to look deeper, to value substance over surface. I didn't frame any photos. I didn't need to. I'd learned that lesson long before. Your worth isn't defined by how others see you. Build quietly. Work honestly. Let your results speak for themselves. And when people exclude you based on who they think you are, don't chase their table. Show up somewhere else. At a better venue, in a better dress, surrounded by people who actually matter. They'll figure it out eventually. The truth always makes its way to the wedding reception in the end.